So this is the second in our series of talks. This one is the actual orientation, starting to learn things about ArcGIS. And here's some of our linkage. We're going to thank Esri for giving us the licensing. And we're going to go quickly into the code of conduct first. So those of you who have not been to a Code for BTV meeting, we abide by the Code for America Code of Conduct as a Code for America Brigade, which basically boils down to that if we do or say anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, if you feel or experience being uncomfortable in the environment because of things we do say or show to you or somebody else, one of the attendees, you should share that with us. You can share it with me as representing the brigade. You could share it with David Healy, who's our host. And if you want to report it further, you can go to the link at the bottom of the screen for our website to show, to learn how to report concerning things to Code for America itself. And we're just going to go through introducing the speakers, the series of talks, and the attendees. So I'm Nick Florsch, second on the list today. David Healy is going to be leading us through some of the basics of ArcGIS Online. So he was one of the two founders of the statewide GIS system back in the 80s and has never relented in his interest for exploring and teaching GIS to people. We used to work together, and he's now retired, meaning he just works for free.
I just play.
So, and then in later sessions, I may occasionally lead other sessions. I certainly lead the getting people online and getting them into an ArcGIS account, which we will not do in this session. So we can talk about that later. And then Kendall Fortney will plan to join us for much later sessions where we're getting into doing things outside of ArcGIS. So I think that's it. I will hand over the control to David Healy, who's in here somewhere. Oh, yeah, there we go. Did you get it?
Let's see. Oops. Oh, God.
Yeah, there we go.
Hit the wrong button.
Well, go the other way.
Double click to hit. No. Why isn't it going down?
I wonder if maybe I bumped the mouse and it's like saying you can't do
Also,
it.
it shrunk it considerably.
Okay, try again. There you go. You're moving the mouse. Great.
There we go. Okay. All right. So this particular session, and I have to admit, I have never taught on Zoom before in my life, so this is a new experience. So you'll have to bear with a few of my issues with trying to make things swap between screen sharing and talking from the slides, because I don't want to use all the slides I prepared. Anyway, we're going to cover the basic GIS principles, ArcGIS Online elements, managing your content best practices, community engagement sites. I'm going to show a few examples of that, and how all of this can be used for civic projects brigades might want to take on. But before I go there, out of the people on, which there aren't too many, I mean, how many people have ever had a GIS class before? Nobody? One. Okay. Well, you're going to have to bear with us on a few of these things. Anybody use GIS in their daily work? Nope. Oh, Nick, you can put your hand down.
Not daily, but you know.
Yeah. And has anybody ever used ArcGIS Online before? Okay. And how many of you are in volunteer positions in your community? Okay, great. And how many people have used spreadsheets in our databases? Okay, not everybody. All right. So the critical thing about GIS, and I'm going to do a quick overview of basic GIS principles and concepts. I mean, GIS basically works with points, lines, and polygon features with specific locations, X, Y, and Z's for every point or vertex within any of those geometries. The other thing you should know about when you hear people talk about projections in GIS, in Vermont, it's Vermont state plane coordinates, which is just a flat map kind of view of the state of Vermont or any particular location. So if you hear of state plane projections, it's because that state has decided it wanted a flat map of its state. Versus Web Mercator, which is the Google introduced, I don't know, long time ago on Google Earth, where the whole Earth is in one projection and you have to live with it. So, but when you get down to the state of Vermont, for the most part, Vermont looks pretty good in Web Mercator. It doesn't look terrible. The other thing that's beautiful about GIS is that it'll know that you're working in Web Mercator, and it'll convert your state plane into the correct projection. So many years ago, that wasn't the case. You had to reproject everything you worked with. The next thing about GIS, you're working with layers. And layers are just a name for the different features, the point, line, or polygon, which has some simple things relative to it. And Nick, why are you shrinking my sign? Or did I do that? Huh. Anyway, so layers are actually what you see on your map. And that's what you configure into symbolizing or filtering or whatever. And we'll get into that later. And then attribute tables are the things that are attached to those point lines and polygons. So there's a direct link and an ID relationship between the physical feature and the data table feature. So that's how you can illustrate or symbolize information differently based on information in the attribute table to the feature. And then the other piece that I want to always make important is metadata. So if you do create a new feature, it's really important to do the metadata that goes along with it. ArcGIS Online allows you to fill out a simple form to do that, but it helps you to remember what you did, it's in the feature you've created or using, and then it's also the great place to write your processing procedures that you use to do what you did with that data. And there's more opportunities in ArcGIS Online when you build projects to do the same thing about the project. And then and the other GIS concept is just, is all built for spatial analysis. So you can do overlay with one layer over another layer. You can intersect one layer with another layer. You can do a selection of one layer from another layer based on location or by attribute. And so you can create new features by using these simple tools. The other aspect with GIS is you can have a time component in a field, and you can actually, the Z value, you can actually do some 3D analysis. So, I mean, that's the quick, probably more than one day class on GIS principles, but it's sort of what we'll be talking about when we go into the next section. Okay. Data sources, I'm not sure what people are going to be using for their projects or what they want to learn with, but this slide just has existing data sources that if you want to avail yourself of, you can get this. So the State GIS Center has a data portal, and the data portal, not only you can download data, you can actually get the URL for their online version of that data to add to your ArcGIS Online map. So VCGI has done a nice job with this. I think almost all of VCGI's data, though, is on ArcGIS Online, and maybe we'll have a chance to show how that works. Agency of Natural Resources has a slew of data that may not be online, but I think most of their data is online. Regional planning commissions have a lot of data. Most of them don't make it available online. And towns the same way. Towns may have data, but it's pretty hard to find. ArcGIS Online has the thing called the Living Atlas, which is, what do you call it? They're managed data sets from owners. You basically, from federal owners to governments that do certify that their data is current and it's available for public use. So there's, I don't know, like 10,000 data sets in this Living Atlas. And I just mentioned the ArcGIS Online search function. You can find most of the state of Vermont's data there if it's been made public. Not all of it has, and so it's sort of interesting. The US government, and these are all hyperlinks that are blue, bright blue. Data.gov is the federal government's search engine for data. Not all of it's in GIS format, but you can find bazillion data sets in the federal government. If anybody needs help on finding data, that's one of the things I've made my career with, is finding data. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of data is that, the last two things. Any URL that has spatial data sets in the following format, either there's a GeoService or a GeoJSON, will work on ArcGIS Online, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And then you can directly work with spreadsheets or CSV files in ArcGIS Online. And we'll get into that issue when we get to the actually building a map. Okay, so now I'm going to try to swap over to, if I can find the share button. Hey, Nick, where's the share button there? Ta-da. There we go. Let's see. Share
Sorry,
screen.
I was mute. Yeah, can you share?
Yeah, nice guy.
Screen?
Nice going. We'll share this screen, right? Then I'll get out of that. Okay, now I can go to. It would be good if I could see my tabs. Oh, there we go.
I can see it. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. You'd have to deal with me in this. Anyway, so when you have your username, and we can go back to that. And how many people on this site already have a user ID? Not many. All right. So what I wanted to show in the first couple of things with ArcGIS Online is the there we go. So when you actually log into ArcGIS Online, you have way too much information. If I can shrink, I can't see my whole screen here because people are in the way. How about if I minimize people? Yeah, that's it. So your login information is here in the upper right. And the first thing you're going to see over here is you're going to see 9 dots. And this actually tells you all the different things you can do or you can launch in ArcGIS Online. So we are going to focus today just on ArcGIS Online to start with. But as you build things and want to do more, you'll be going here to start what you want to work in. So everything from, apps, that's a developer site. You can actually develop code and put it to work in ArcGIS Online. Dashboards is a type of ArcGIS Online application. They've got 2 versions of it. They got a developer site. Experience build, I have no idea. That's a new one on me. Oh, I know it. It's simple, fast coding building of an application. I saw one session on that at a user conference in February, but I have never done it. Hub is what we're going to be talking about later. Living Atlas is just where you get all the data. You can launch a Living Atlas page and you can see all the applications that have been built with Living Atlas. That they're going to replace ArcGIS Online mapping with a new map viewer beta that we're not going to work with today because my feeling it's not ready for prime time. Marketplace is where you find other applications that other vendors have provided. Quick Capture is if you want to do field data collection with a very simple tool. And this is the one you'd use. Solutions are just pre-made solutions. They have a slew of local government solutions that have already been pre-built. So when you get a chance to play with this online, I would look at some of those solutions. Story maps, you can go into story map templates to use some of your map and your content in. And Survey 123, which to me is a very powerful tool, you can actually do data collection and information gathering in using Survey 123. And you can either use it in a map format or you can just purely use it as a survey tool. And it produces some nice reports from the surveys that it done. I used it to survey 18 towns in central Vermont to see what people's interest was in fiber to the home, and it worked out great. And then Workforce is a data collection workflow kind of thing for, when you do the data collection and you want to send somebody out, do the inspections or do the corrections. So this is, I don't know what more is there, but anyway, I think that's all the things you're going to want to deal with. So then we'll go to ArcGIS Online, which is where, it's going to launch it again. And so the first screen I get is this Code for America by default. And I want to, on the screen here, you can see Home, which is what this is, a gallery, which has nothing in it right now, Maps, I'm not going to go there yet. The content is where everything you do on your own will get stored. And you can see this is my content for Code for BTV. And I earlier did a thing with test points to see how to create a feature layer. But that's it. That's all I have in here right now. And what you'll see is it'll show you, you can add a new item to your content from someplace else, even though you haven't used it in a map. You create a new feature layer, a tile layer, or a locator. So this is where you do your new creation. I mean, I am not a big creator of data. I am a user of data. So, but everybody in the group is going to have a different need. But that's where you'd actually create your point lines and polygons. And then over here is, how do you want to look at the table, different ways of looking at your content. Then you can filter your content. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, having been at Stone for 25 years, my list of content got way out of control. And so you can either search on a particular thing, or you can actually just look at maps, layers, scenes, apps. And the other thing is creating folders. So if you're creating, you're going to work on a couple of different projects, you may want to create a folder for that project to be the container of that data. I was never very good at this, but if you want to be very organized, that's where you go. So once you see where your content is, and you can see most of you will not have any content. You can go back up here to the top row of tools, and you will see Make a Map. I think. Let's say, yeah, there we go. And so you're going to get a blank screen, a blank map, I mean, of the United States. And this is where this will be interesting to see how this works with Zoom. I don't have that much open, or I don't think I have that much open, although Chrome uses up a lot of resources. And I've got a lot of Chrome things going here. So you get a blank map with no content other than a base map, and you can, up here, if you don't like that base map, you have, I don't know, it's 16 different, more than that now, there's a lot more base maps you can work with. And, you're going to want to play with this to find which is the best way to put in the background, or you can use your own base map. There's help files on how to do that. But in the meantime, let's leave this base map where it is, and we want to add content to this map. And so you get a thing: search for layers, browse the living atlas, add a layer from the web, add a layer from a file, and add map notes. So search for layers is going to go to your content or to ArcGIS Online or the living atlas and look for the data you might search for. Adding a layer from the web is when you have the URL for a geomap. You would add it there. And if you want to add a spreadsheet or data table or a shape file, which is an ArcGIS format file, you would add it down here. Add map notes, I've never used that, so I'm not exactly sure what that does, but I guess you can add notes about the map you're creating. Again, documentation is a great thing to do, not always done. But let's go search for layers, and I want to show you what happens. The only place, by default, it looks in your content. It just assumes that you've got all the content you want to do your map, or to make your map. So in this case, we don't have any content. So what do? I go and drop down under my content, and I go to ArcGIS Online. And the one thing I wanted to show, you can see it actually stores where you've been in the past. If I type ACS, and there, let's just do ACS and see what comes up. ACS stands for the American Community Survey. So it's the Census Bureau's data collection that's done every year, and then they actually do yearly data and they do 5-year averaging data. And so if you, for example, we'll just pick it and it'll say ACS population variables boundaries, and it says it's authoritative, it's a living atlas, and you'll see all kinds of information about this data set. So they have done a pretty good job of describing it, and what you want to do is I'll add it to this map. And so that's done. I can get rid of that. Now I want to go back to my map. So here you see about the map, and that's the default. And then content is where you see what you just added to your map. And the legend is the legend, and that's the only variable that's showing right now. But why I picked this one to illustrate data and adding data is I mean, you can add unlimited data sets to your map, but this is where I wanted to show how you actually, change symbology, label things, configure, and filter. So right now, the first thing I want to do with this map, because I don't care about the whole United States, I only care about Vermont. Hope there's nobody from outside of Vermont on this site, but anyway, so I hit the filter button and it just says, well, we need to find the state symbol, state postal code equals VT, right?
David, we've got people from outside Vermont, so, be nice.
Oh, I'll be nice. But Vermont is the center of the universe. And I'm going to apply the filter. So now you see, that's how quickly. This is all done in the cloud. And this is not a small data set, but it works that rapidly. And now I want to zoom into Vermont. So if I hold the Shift key down and use the mouse cursor to draw a box around Vermont, it'll zoom into Vermont. And if you don't like that, oops, oh, you know what happened? You can see a different variable showed up. So guess what? I need to do a filter on counties. And so what it has, and I was going to get to this, and notice they have a different variable for this one. And I think this is Vermont, yeah. Let's type it in. I'm doing this only so you can see, or both, how you filter it. You have a huge data set, but you only want to work with a subset of it. You'd want to filter. And I'm going to turn off tracks at the moment because I'll have to do it all over again. But right now, so there's the state of Vermont's, ACS population. It doesn't tell you what it is, but if I drop down the display of the legend, this is the percent of population in dependent age groups. So this is under 18 and over 65. And if you want to see all actually, let's see if they do this. Yeah, there's only 14 records here. So if you open the data table by hitting the table icon, you can actually see, oops, I'll get to that in a minute. You can stretch the thing up and you'll see the 14 counties, but they have, if you go across, you're seeing, I think there's something like 100 variables, including the error range. So it's one thing that's important. So now we got this one element showing on the map, and they have done, they've symbolized it in purple, and they've got a breakdown of percent by group. And so you don't like that, you can go in and change not only the color scheme, but how it gets done. So here it shows in percent of, so you choose the attribute you want to show. So in this case, we'll keep it the way it is, but we want to change the color options. And so you get a window that has the, not only does it have the color, but it has the range. You can change the high and lows in terms of how you classify it just by doing the slider bar. And it automatically changes the map. So this is how you deal with the stats in terms of making them representation to tell your story. Because color is probably the best way of telling a story in GIS. So I don't like purple, so I'm going to go to the green blue, and there you go. It's all rapidly done and done quickly. And then I'm going to hit OK. Yeah, you got to hit OK a lot, and then you have to hit done, or it doesn't take a thing. And just best practices, I'm going to save my map before I lose it somehow. And I'm just going to say Vermont ACS, best practices here, put some tags on it, Vermont, comma, demographics, ACS, and I'm just going to say for summary, Vermont demographics. And it saves in my folder, but if you had created another folder, it would show it there. So now it's saved. This map is saved, even though we haven't finished working with it. And so now we have this map of the state. Oh, you know, let's do some more symbol stuff. It's sort of important to know all the things you can do. Okay, go to the symbol thing. So they have fill here that's going as a graduated fill, but the outline is right now is choosing, I can't tell which color. Looks, oh, it's gray. So let's make it black or something, you know, or something, yeah, black. We'll make it black. And I want to change the thickness to 1.5 points. So it makes the line. And this is also where you do transparency. And why they have it set so far up is another question by default on that. But, and now I have to hit OK again and hit done. And hopefully hopefully the color didn't change. Huh. Well, I had no idea why the boundaries aren't drawing.
Oh, do you have one on top of the other?
Oh, thank you.
Maybe? I'm not sure. Or you're not zoomed in, right?
No, that should be it. Well, I don't know. We'll come back to that in a minute. The other thing you're going to do, so the little icons here. Oh, I wonder if I was on the wrong one. You're right. No, that's right. Oh, see, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right, Nick. It'd be nice to use in the right way. One of the things about some of the data sets you get online, they'll give you, you know, national, state, county, census tract. They go all the way down a lot of geography. So now we've re-symbolized the state of Vermont's population by 18 and under and 65 and older. But so what else do I want to do with this? Well, I'd like to know some more about that. So here I can go down and deal with labels. So in the 3 little dots to the right of the feature layer that you're working with shows you all the options you can get to work from zooming to a feature, transparency, visibility range. So this is what happens. This is where you can see some of the layers on the left are grayed out. That means that not in the visible range. And so they're not drawing. So it's a way to control what's on your screen at any one time. So the more you zoom in, the more you get, more detail you want to get. You can rename the layer, and you know we can do that right here and just say population under 18 and over 65. So now I've created a useful title to the data, to the layer. And now we want to, the labeling feature is in this other feature that you can drop down to, and you go create labels. Again, it's working all off of the attribute field names. And by default, it tries to look for something that is reasonable. In this case, look for name, and it put it in the counties, except for Rutland County got left off for some reason. It's very interesting. I can't explain why the Census Bureau didn't do that, but what happens when I click
like
on
how
it?
zoomed in it is.
Maybe. Oh, you know what? Let's go back to labeling. Manage labels and see where it says 13 point. Let's make it 9 point. And Nick, you're too good. So we've now you have to hit the OK button to have it permanently take. So now what you have is a sort of a visual of the state of Vermont, color-coded based on age and distribution in the state. And then what you have, you can get what they're called identified pop-ups. So if you click on any one of the subset features, in this case, counties, you'll get a description of what's going on in this county for that data. Now, this is all customizable. And in some cases, you just get a complete list of every field and every value in that field, in those fields, for the feature you clicked on. In this case, they've actually wrote a narrative, and I can show you how that works. This is where you configure the pop-up and configure attributes. I think this is where they do it. Yeah. So these are all, that's interesting, they're all turned on. I'm gonna.
I think the green configure button is what I don't know what you're trying to show.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So they've done some interesting coding in here to make it have that fancy pop-up. So they've customized it. If I want to, let's cancel out of that and hit OK and OK. So if I want to add this data set again and change all of that, I don't want to look at age of, I want to look at my own data. I want to look at some other data set. I would copy, and it automatically moves it to the top, and it says copy at the end of it. And so now I would go here and say, pick any other attribute, and not exactly sure, but let's see what happens. Area of land. And we want, so that's, it automatically did that. My question is, I want to know what happens to the pop-ups. Yeah, it's still using their code. So you have to rewrite the script that they have in there. I don't use a script at all. And so if I add one of my other favorite layers, and a few people don't know this, Vermont parcels. Having worked with this before, I know which one is the one to use. So in this case, I'm adding pretty large data set, but I'm going to zoom way in. And because this won't draw at all. This thing is huge. But the state of Vermont has a complete data set of every property in the state. And if I click on one to look at the pop-up, you can, this is a standard pop-up. So you have every piece of information on that piece of land, including the owner. Actually, yeah, there's the name, owner one, Harry James. But so that's sort of what a standard pop-up looks like. But what you can do in a pop-up, since this is what I was trying to illustrate, is in configuring it, you get the screen here and it says, I want to turn them all out. I only want to show parcel ID and owner one. And I hit OK, and then I save it. And now when I click on a parcel, you're going to get just the two attributes I said to display. So you can control pretty much when anybody, as you're going forward, you may have a more sophisticated database than you want your users to even see. This is the way how you control what gets displayed. And again, in this case, say you're in the town of, well, it won't be my town is Richmond, but it isn't. And then I want to zoom to, let's see if it did it, yeah. So that's how you narrow down what you want to look at if you want a smaller set of data behind you. If you haven't seen what is available at VCGI, I'd advise you to go there. Going there is probably the best just to get familiar with what's available. And then the last thing I want to show on this screen anyway is, and Nick may have to help me here. Do I have to, oh, let me save this anyway. Since some of you want to create your own data. I mean, there's, I go to home, content. And this front page, you can see now where it's at. I've added, my new map is in my content. And I created it today. And I'm the only person who can see this. So if you want to share it, you have to click on that little person button and you can share with everybody in the public or in the organization. Nick, are you going to create an organization? Oh, do we have an organization, right?
It would be the Code for America organization right now, and
yeah, I would. Yeah, right now just keep your own data, I think, right?
Yeah. That's fine, but yeah.
Anyway, so over here, you can create a new feature. Since some of you are going to want to create your own data, and from templates, from existing layer, from a URL, and then the templates, they have, I don't know, so many. You want to spend a little time going through this before you do it, because you don't need to reinvent the survey. I mean, they've got, field notes, they've got field interviews, they've got, hydrant maintenance, hazards. There's a lot of pre-built feature layer templates that they're not filled in, but the design and construction's all there. I don't see one for no, it's so anyway. Let's go to the general over here on the left. General. I want to create a point feature. So I hit the create button. Do I want to capture GIS? I'm not going to do that. So the next screen is, you need a, what's the area that you want to create these points the best you can. So I draw a box with the shift key down and the mouse button and zoom into Vermont. The best I can, hit next. And then I'm going to call this one demo point file.
We should probably clarify that a feature is what ArcGIS calls any item, whether it's a point, a line, a polygon, and the associated attributes. So when they say a feature layer, it's a layer containing a bunch of different types of features, right?
So this feature layer will be created in your account and your content. And demo point. Oh, it's being saved in my folder. Then I'm going to hit done. So, and all of this stuff, I mean, it's, practice, practice, practice. So this thing is actually building a feature layer, a sort of a very dumb one, in the sense that it has no real content. In fact, I don't even think it has. Okay, so now I have this point layer created and data. So if I look at the data, you can see that it's just got an object ID. And there's a location to put files and folders. And you can add a field right here. So this is where, if you go to the data tab on your point file, you can add a field and call it dog type. How's that? Display name, dog type. And we'll make it, 50 characters. I don't have a default value. So I've now added a new, unless it tells me, oops, invalid character. Oh, Nick, really?
Yeah, that is my fault.
So now I have dog type as a type. So now if I go back to my map, I'll go to my content here. I have this demo point file in there. So now when I go to create a new map, and I want to add that editable feature from my content. It's right there. And I double clicked on it to add it. It didn't add it. I guess you have to hit the plus sign there. Go learn. So this little plus sign will add it to the map. And then I'll go back to my legend. And there's my point file. So now I want to edit. Oh, actually, if you look at the, there's a default symbol for that. Now if I hit the edit button, add a feature. And so, oh no, you have to click on the feature, activate the feature, and then click on the screen where you want to put it, and then you type in the name of the span. Yeah, this is where you can actually get a little more creative than this, but it is Al. And you can add other things. Anyway, so this is sort of the way you add features. Now you can use lines or polygons, so you can trace things, or reuse things. I don't know what you guys are going to want to end up doing, but in terms of boundaries, the state of Vermont has a zillion boundary files. Let me go back to the map itself. And if I type in, the reason I'm bringing this up, because I know someone in the group is looking at reapportionment. Search for layers, and I'll go to, hopefully ArcGIS Online will have it, but we don't know. We'll find out. Vermont House Districts. There you go. And this Senate districts too. Yeah, it's 2002 as well. So if I turn that on, we get, so you can find pretty much about, I have to say in Vermont, you can find pretty much anything you want. There's a lot of elevation data in Vermont. There's a lot of hill shade. You can make things very pretty by putting a hill shade underneath your data. What time is it when to cover that? What else am I going to cover here? Oh yeah, so this demo point file, let's go back to that guy. So item details. So another one of those choices on the extended features of that. So here's where I would suggest you So well, I'm calling it metadata, but this is where you should put in all the things you want to describe the stuff that you've been building, so that if somebody wants to see what you've been doing, you can do it here. You can actually do a lot more. Attribution tags. The URL, if you want to share this thing, although this time we haven't shared it, it's down here, and you can share this layer with this point file we just created with anybody, because it's now available as long as you're sharing it with the world. So here you've got a text box to fill in. You can edit, you can change the thumbnail of the feature that you're creating, or you've created. So there's a lot of places where you can fill in and provide you and your users content about what it is you've done. And then here you can put in anything you want in terms of disclaimers and use. Now over here, I'm not sure exactly there's anything more. No. So anyway, that in terms of the metadata that I want people to really think about is if you do create your own new feature data set, you should fill this in. And in some cases, ArcGIS Online will not let you save it unless you've actually filled in some of the things. But most importantly, the metadata is something that goes along for a long time. And details, show the save layer, save layer, no, it's already saved. So there's a lot of, okay, once you've finished editing this demo thing, you can turn off the editing here. You can also turn off editing in the data where we set the thing up under the data settings. You can turn off editing so nobody can edit it. You can set in that page, you can set it up so that you can't delete anything. So if you want to share editing with people, you want to make sure, so in other words, you've shared it with everyone and the whole file is editable. You want to make sure nothing can get deleted in my case, my recommendation anyway. So process documentation, sharing maps, apps, and data. Yeah, so let's save this map again. So I've created this map. I'm going to turn off the state district boundaries and save again, because I want to, whatever you leave the map the way you've saved it is the way it gets used, the way it gets open the next time you open it. So if you're going to share, there's a little share button here, and you can choose everyone, Code for America, and there's the link to the map. And it's telling me editing enabled, sharing with everybody means that everyone can edit. So they give you a warning. And you want to continue. I'm going to say yeah, because I don't care about that. And then you have update sharing. So everybody has access to that in my group. So when you log in on the Code for BTV and you look at the organization's data content, you'll see that demo test in there. But this is also, when you're sharing, if you wanted to create a web app, you would go here. And so this is where I'm not sure I want to spend a ton of time today on that, but this is where you'd actually build a web application, either using one of their configurable things or not. But and then you can build your own story map. You can do your own. You can build your own, and it's pretty complex. I mean, complete. I mean, all kinds of different ways of showing things. What I want to get to next, organize many credits. Nick, how? No, I'm going to deal with credits later. Organizing layers. Oh yeah. So you added 13 layers to your map, and you hate the way they're organized. So on the left-hand side of the layer, there's the 3 dots, and it says click and drag to reorder layers. So that's the only function those 3 dots do. And so I just moved it down underneath parcels, which means parcels is drawing on top of that point file. So you have to remember that, and that's where transparency comes into play, because now, although the point's way over there, I want to change the transparency of parcels to 50%, And you can see what happens. I can see everything underneath it. So it's pretty powerful. And it's so learning how to manipulate, even just playing with one feature layer when you have a chance to go back on your own, playing with every element in this little, the little the icons that are visible, and then the other items that you can work with it are all there. I mean, it's the visibility range. It'll actually give you hints on what they think it ought to be, and they'll tell you the scale range. But no, this is the one to play with. Now, I didn't show you the perform analysis because I thought it was for, I'll let you know it's for a later thing. This is where you can actually do your data enrichment. You can summarize data, aggregate points, join features, summarize nearby. But we'll do that, I think, to me is a whole different session. Data enrichment is where you can add, ArcGIS Online has a thing called community analyst and business analyst, and it has like 5,000 data elements about geography down to the block level that they have compiled from a variety of sources, and you use up credits when you use it, but it's pretty powerful. I'll send out to everybody some of the stuff I've done using that and how powerful it is. The next one is patterns, densities, hotspots, interpolate points, find clusters, create buffers, drive times, nearest planned routes. So you can do all these things right in ArcGIS Online. You can manage data, dissolve boundaries, extract data, generate tessellations, merge layers, overlay layers. So that's under the analysis tab. So if I go back to my, don't want that. Turn that on. Okay, go back to my original map content, table of contents. It's there. So what I want to go quickly through before we run out of time is show you some of my so here's this on your screen here on the slideshow. I can bring it up. I got to go down to the next slide. Okay, I have hyperlinked a bunch of applications that if we don't have time to get through today, we can do later. But the first one is an application that Nick and I did with the city of Montpelier over a year and a half ago, in which the city's between COVID-19 and layoffs, the city is pretty hurting right now for employees and people to do work. But we did two different elements for their hub thing, and so these are all elements in our hub GIS, the hub tool. And so the Department of Public Works has its own page. And Nick, did you remove all the other stuff?
I didn't. No, I don't think so.
What happened to?
If you go to snow and ice, if you click on that, oh, the other stuff is only if you're logged in as the city, you see more.
Oh, okay, yeah. We built a page. We built a page for all the departments, and in Public Works, we had one for water, sewer, snow removal. I forget what the other two were, but we had a lot of different places where you could do it. But basically, what we did under this snow and ice removal, we built a story map. And in the story map, we have a series of everything you want to know about snow removal in the city of Montpelier, including where the plows are, and it tracks where the plows are. Another site describing all the people that work for the department, and all about parking bans and where you can pick up your car after it's been towed, because they don't tell you. Anyway, biggest problem with these websites is nobody tells you they exist. So in any event, I'm not going to go there. So when you are working on something and you really want people to use it, you got to almost build something that, why is this compelling for them to use? Another version of something that, so here's a simple one that, and for those people, I know there's a couple of people from, oops, get out of there. Trying to get, so I have an application I built for the fiber community in the state of Vermont that's using way too much data, but it allowed people to get quick access to different information that they need to do planning for fiber. So This is, I took a map and then made a simple application, which doesn't have any, it just says simple turn off and turn on things. So that's the simple template for looking at available data. And in this application, I don't think I have any of my own data in here. I think it's all, yeah, no, it's all publicly available data. And so I went to one of this before we run out of time. I should say, actually, before we run out of time, questions. I know I've been running off at the mouth. I did want to talk about, oh, I must have deleted that slide. So what I was expecting, Nick said there's a Slack thing that people can ask, post questions and comments. I'm willing to answer any question online. I mean, via Slack, I guess. I'll sign up, Nick, honest. How many things do I want to be bothered by? So the question is, as you build something and you get just bogged down, you can Slack me a question, but you also, and I thought I'm missing a slide here, Nick. Oh no, on this slide, it's called Managing Your Content Best Practices. I forgot to mention the most important part. There's a hyperlink to ArcGIS Online reference site. And if you have a question of any kind about how to do something or how it might work, that reference site is complete, very complete. And, but no, you can ask me too, but in any event, I think probing your own, doing a little bit of work is probably helpful. So that's sort of one parting thing. And Nick, I think there's a lot more to be done. So if there is an interest to do a second session, working on a project or actually helping with doing, how do you do analysis? How do you, I mean, I didn't cover, you can see here on the maps, if I can get back to it. There's a print function. I mean, map with legend, and it creates a PDF file. It won't be very pretty, but.
Yeah, I think that there's, this has been a high-level overview of the basics of working with ArcGIS Online, and it's when you get down to a specific, something that you want to accomplish, that we can also dig in even further into how to use some of the different tools. So you mentioned story maps, but we didn't talk about what story maps are to ArcGIS Online. We mentioned dashboards, but we didn't talk about where those would be used and how story maps and dashboards might work together. So there's a number of further layers to dig into with ArcGIS Online, and so hopefully there's sufficient interest to follow that. To answer your question, James Hamilton, where's the link found? We were talking about the share my screen. Oops. Here. I think that David was talking about this reference site here, managing your content best practices. So if I updated the permissions correctly so you can get into the slide deck, then you should be able to use the links here and explore some of the things that David's pointed out. So yeah, that's kind of it. Do people have any, other than questions, do you have any thoughts about things you want to do or stuff you'd like to see us specifically address in a future session?
For me anyways, I think one of the things that I'd like to see is how you can work with this. I mean, the maps are good and the visualization is exciting. How we could do a little bit more like logic do some analysis. So David, you have like the survey results for the fiber project. You know, how could I do some, you know, calculations? And I mean, I'm the one that's going to be doing the reapportionment stuff. So I'm just trying to think of how I could write scripts or how I can connect outside software to go and do some of that a little bit more advanced logic. That would be super helpful.
I can, on that answer that question, I think Esri will probably give you a whole suite of tools for reapportionment because they make a lot of money on it. And they typically give away all their stuff. So not always, but for the most part. At least that was the last reapportionment. They had a tool that you could actually move boundary lines and it would automatically tell you what the population was, what the I mean, it's the dirty part of GIS. I mean, how do you manipulate political boundaries? But anyway, yeah, no, I think that's, we can get into that and it'd be fun actually.
I think that brigades in general would, even just understanding how to use the story maps is pretty powerful, because sometimes all that needs to be done to help a city along is to shed some light on what they're doing right with data, telling a story, or what they're doing wrong with data.
Yeah. There's a link in the slide deck to the town of Bennington, which is a great application of a story map. It takes the public through the whole process of redeveloping downtown Bennington. It was a beautiful engagement process, and it worked. The town committed, and the businesses committed to redeveloping 6 blocks in downtown. There's a collaborative project that was done with about 6 different partners, and we put all the information into a story map that became their main communication vehicle.
Yep.
So,
yeah, if there's interest, we can plan to do something maybe next week. We'll see what schedules look like. But is this a good time, or is this a rough time for people?
I'm pretty flexible.
All right. I'll just assume that James Hamilton and Eric T are just like, yeah! 2 thumbs up.
So the other thing, I mean, if you've been using the John Hopkins COVID tracking system, that's a dashboard from Esri.
Yep.
I mean, it's much more sophisticated than a typical dashboard because they have, I think there's something like 18 people working on that dashboard.
Mm.
Yep. But it's pretty amazing.
Sweet.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot, David, for your time, and
You're welcome.
for everybody else.
Thank you.
I'm almost could almost do this.
Yeah. This is good. I think it's a great start. We've recorded it. We'll share that out. We may do this session again in the future,
Sure.
assuming there's interest, but we'll also be expanding on exploring further depths of ArcGIS together.
And Nick, do you want to talk about that other session that some people may not have taken?
Oh, yeah, just in case, if for anybody that needs it, on Monday, I'll be doing another, give you an account session.
Do they have to attend to get that account?
Unless I know them personally or have met them directly, yes, they do.
Okay.
I am the gatekeeper, I guess, but I'm trying to protect the organization-wide license. So yes.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great
Thank you, everybody.
day.